Welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm really excited to talk to you about making your life more spiritual and how that happened for me, what that can look like, and just really dive into this on a relaxed note. Like, this does not have to be a serious conversation at all, because I think a lot of people think that like change and transformation and self-awareness, self-development has to be something like so serious. So I want to just take a step back and just point out a different perspective and maybe give you guys some ideas on how you can step into this and maybe take some relief off of, starting something new in your life, which could be like adding in more time with yourself, adding in self-care, right? Like a lot of us kind of know that we need more time with ourselves, with reflection, with self-development, with changing some beliefs, with changing habits, whatever it may be for you. Oftentimes we know that that's what we need, but we just don't know how to get there. And so I want to like take off some of the pressure. And this topic really came to me through, conversations. Like a lot of my topics for the podcast are really based off of like things that are brought to me up, like just things that I have to come through with life, with conversations with other people, in my relationships, whatever. So this has come to me because one, it started out like this has been brought to my attention, or like that I often stay really deep in the trenches of life, but I take the time to reflect and stay self-aware and just like I always want to learn. Like I always want to be aware of what's going on and to see how I can shift things that to make things, better, right? Like I'm very much a self-improvement type person. And I think from the outside looking in, that can seem like, how does she do that? And I've never thought about that until people literally ask me, like, how do you like do that? Aren't you exhausted? Isn't this enough? And I had that perspective before, but there becomes like this game for me. Like it's essentially like how do I want to play this game? And I think for me, the best way for me to play this game is to be the most aware that I can be, and I can't be aware unless I'm curious. So staying curious is like my jam. Even when I just want to throw in the towel, I get curious as to why I want to throw in the towel. So that's kind of been brought to my attention. They're like, the people close to me have a big appreciation of my ability to just kind of take a different perspective in any situation. And my mentor recently told me, ask people close to me, how do I serve them? How do I help them? What do they think I'm good at? Because human design, I am a 2-4 profile. My profile is 2-4, and the second line has the ability to like have these gifts, really natural gifts, but they don't always see them. Like they don't always recognize them in themselves. Oftentimes they don't recognize them at all. And it's like other people pointing it out to you. So it's really healthy. So if you have a second line in your profile, or if you know someone who has a second line, like it's so healing and also just healthy to have these conversations of like, how do you help people? How do you show up for people? How, like, what do they see is your gift, right? Like, we want to find that out from other people just to kind of recognize it in ourselves and then take that and reflect on it. And like, how does that feel to hear that this is something that might not come natural to other people, but it might come very natural to you? And that's the other thing with second lines is like, some of the things that I just do naturally, I think like everyone does that until people point it out to me. So my mentor recently said, take a step back from things and just ask people like, how do you serve them? How do you show up for them? And the biggest things that I got were providing a different perspective and like staying calm which I found was interesting. Like I do realize I'm a pretty calm person, but they said it in a way that, like, I stay calm even though, like, I will provide a different perspective, and I have no expectation of, like, if that person takes on my perspective, if they follow through with what I think or anything. It's like, I'm okay with just putting my perspective out there, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, well, that's very aligned with with the podcast and everything," right? But I I found that that's so, like, to me, that's natural. Like, I don't think about how I provide different perspectives. I do when I feel like I need to, right? And then the other thing that came up was how I, like, find beauty in the small things. I can make anything seem spiritual. And that was very interesting to me too, because I'm like, wow, like, I don't always feel that myself. Like, sometimes I think it's like a struggle for me. So I definitely resonate with people who find it a struggle to find the beauty in things. But when I was reflecting on this, so this is the thing, if you're second line or anybody and you're receiving these compliments, this feedback, like, just like an insult or maybe something not as nice, like, you want to take the time to reflect and be like, do I resonate with this? Is this my truth? Even though somebody, like, observes this in you or has this perception of you, like, you don't have to take it on, right? So in my reflection of this, I realized that every part of my life, I am very intentional on making it spiritual. And so this was the piece that I think kind of trips people up. And they're like, where there's a disconnect where I feel like spirituality needs to be infused in everything, where I can see other people wanting to compartmentalize everything, where spirituality is on its own. And it seems a bit overwhelming to do it the other way around, like to infuse spirituality in everything, because I think it seems like things need to change. Things need to, this has to happen for this to happen. And I don't see things so linear in that sense, where I'm just like, I can show up differently right now. I can bring a different energy into something that I think needs to change and make it spiritual right then. Because the intention is what makes it spiritual. So, deep reflection of all these things that have come into my realm in the last month or so. And I really wanted to talk about how you can make the most big thing in your life spiritual, even if it doesn't feel spiritual. And I want to share this because for me, it's parenting. And, like, to me, parenting is obviously spiritual. like there's no avoiding, like, healing as a parent unless you really, like, aren't open to it, which is fine. Like, if you're not open to it, you're probably not listening to this podcast. But if you aren't open to it, like, don't beat yourself up. Like, maybe parenting isn't where you want to start. Like, or maybe you're not a parent, right? Like, don't think it has to be parenting. And don't think you have to have the same perception on parenting as I do. But the day I stepped into parenting, I was first a foster parent, now an adoptive parent. And so, like, literally it was an overnight step into parenting. And, like, I did, we just met them and they were there. And that was very interesting for me. And I found that I had to surrender to that path. Like, I had to surrender to parenting other people's kids. I had to surrender to, like, being a part of the system. I had to surrender to just, like, all the possibilities of foster care, and that the kids that we took placement of first were 7 weeks old and 18 months old. So they had some experience in life somewhere else, right? So there were all these things that I was like, I have to surrender to this, which was a foreign concept for me at that time. Like, I was self-aware, but I wasn't, like, in my healing. I had no idea. But I was like, I just have to give in. Like, this is the story I've stepped into. And so from day one, parenting has been very healing for me. And like, honestly, a slap in the face because like I would think one thing and have this expectation. And I was quickly reminded like expectations need to go. Like, just enjoy what you know in the moment. So it was a lot of coming back to the moment, which in turn gave me a lot of time to like zoom out because I was so busy being present. Like, yes, of course, I thought about things like I needed to do. I had mom guilt of like how I responded, what, I could have done this differently. I had all that going on, but I also was very intentional about being in the moment. And that gave me time to zoom out and I'm like, what is important? There's so much going on with parenting. Like, you could be listening to other people's opinions. You could be listening to the opinions of the doctor, the teachers, the daycare providers. When you're in a system, there's a lot of other voices, and there's just so much noise. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is a lot. And I had to come back to myself. Like, I almost had to make it a spiritual experience for like to get through it. So I really had to just kind of surrender to the whole parenting experience. And that's when I was like, there's something more here. Like, I can do other things. And so that's when I really honestly got into human design, my spirituality, pulling tarot card. Like, I got real deep into tarot and oracle. And some of my closest friends that I didn't have this spiritual connection with, like, came back really prominently in my life, and I felt so supported. Even like the people who like came back into my life because of like this spiritual connection too weren't even necessarily parents. I did have like one of my good friends, she was a mom, and so it was amazing to like connect on this different level with people who like, I mean, some new people, of course, but people who I was able to reconnect with. And so I felt so supported to really just enter this. At the time, like in the beginning, I was like, I need to do this for myself because I felt like I couldn't really be the best parent unless I was a better version of myself, right? And that's true for anyone. Like, you want to be better at something, like you're gonna start with yourself. And so it was like, okay, if I'm like, of course I'm going to do this. Like, I had already committed to foster, and it wasn't like, if I'm going to do this, it was more like, if I'm going to feel good about this, then I need to do this the right way. There's beliefs I need to heal. There's patterns I don't want to continue. And I want to feel good about parenting. And so part of that whole thing was, okay, this is a piece of my life that seems very challenging, seems like a lot of work is needed, whatever that means. And I'm here to do it. Like, I'm here to show up. And it was just so clear, like, okay, the work you need to start with is with yourself. And this was, 3 going on 4 years ago. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know I would go down so many rabbit holes, but I learned through the last 3.5 years that the best work you can do is on yourself. And if there's an area of your life that seems like very consuming, maybe really dense, not necessarily one you want to get out of, right? Like, for me, the parenting, it wasn't like, this is too much, I want to get out of this. It was, this is uncomfortable and I know there's a better way. Any area of your life that is. And this could be to get out of something too. So I'll use a job example. Let's say in your career, like, you're happy with your career, but something needs to change. Or you could be unhappy with your career, but you're not ready like to get out yet because you maybe want more of a plan. You want to have that stability set up moving forward, whatever it may be. There's all these options, but whatever feels very consuming to you, what feels dense, what kind of rules your world right now, that is probably the place where you think there is no spirituality. Like, there's no room for my spirituality there. There's no room to take all this light and enter it over there. Like, it almost seems like there's a wall up around it. I will tell you right now, that is the place where like you're ready to be healed. Like that is the place that is actually, I don't want to say easy, like it can be easy, yes, but that's the place that like needs it, needs the spirituality. Because if it's your job or if it's parenting, like for me, parenting, like I parented 24/7. Like, yes, I had daycare, but like you still have the weight of it. And so if it's your job, like you're spending 40, 50, however many hours there a week doing your job. And if it's not great, if it doesn't light you up, if you're constantly in stress, angst, frustration, bitterness, whatever low vibrational emotion you are while you're doing it, no matter how much you like it, that's the energy that you're in. And a lot of times we will settle for that because we're like, it's going to change when this happens. It's going to change when I save up money, when this job opens up. I used to do that. I used to work a 9-to-5 job and I would be like, when this position opens up, I'm going to apply for it and like be really unhappy where I was. And now on this other side, like that doesn't make sense to me. Like you can shift that right now without leaving, right? Like if you're not ready to leave, then don't leave. But you don't have to stay stuck in that low vibrational feeling energy in the meantime. Like you are worthy of feeling good right now. And a lot of people are like, well, I can't change my job. I can't change the people at my job. You're right. I can't change parenting. I can't change my kids. I don't want to change my kids, but like I can't, it's really like putting the blame on everything else and ignoring the fact that you have so much power. So making this spiritual practice a part of your lifestyle is really understanding that you can infuse spirituality in every single thing that you do. You don't have to, but when you do, my experience is you feel this sense of ease. Not that things are easy, because I still have challenges. Things still come up and I'm like, what the heck is happening? Like I'm still human. I still have human reactions. I still have human feelings. But being able to come back to what I know and what I have taken the time to find my truth in, it just feels so much more grounded. It doesn't feel like I'm always running. I am always running everywhere. Like I am a mom of 4 right now. And I get the comments of like, oh, you have your hands full. Yes, I do. And I'm proud because I'm having fun while I do. I am fully immersed in motherhood and I have nothing to be upset about like from it, right? Like there's things that so my example, of course, is parenting. It's going to be different for everyone. If you're a parent, parenting can be your biggest spiritual practice, but it doesn't have to be. I imagine when my kids get older, it will still be a very spiritual practice for me, but maybe not my biggest, And so you get to decide. For me, I wanted to feel more connected. I wanted to open up my gifts. I wanted to claim my intuitive, like, right? I'm so intuitive. So I wanted to claim that. And I wanted it to be part of my lifestyle. So if you're here, I feel like you probably want something similar. Like you want it infused in your life. There wasn't, like, I could have said, oh, when my kids get older, I'll have more time to be myself, connect with my guides, pull my cards. Yeah, you could wait. Like, you could put things off. That's fine. But I want you to tune back into what are your desires? Why are they your desires? And if you don't know why, like, that's okay. If an answer isn't coming through for you, that's okay. But know that your desires are connected to your soul. And your desires are coming up for a reason. And you have conscious choice to say, this is a desire that's important for me right now. This is a desire that I know is going to play out 5-10 years from now. There's this discernment that you can have with this, and nothing is going to be forced on you unless it's something that is like out of alignment, a lesson needs to be learned, right? And so you can use this curiosity and this awareness in whatever part of life you're feeling like, okay, this area of my life could use a little bit more light, could use a little bit more spirituality, and get curious about the emotions that come up. What patterns are you in? What beliefs do you have that you keep enforcing through your actions? Okay. So parenting is so spiritual for me because every time I respond to my kids, every time I react to my kids, every conversation I have, how I feel when I go pick them up, when I wake up with them, when I put them to bed, it's information. It is like a way for me to see different versions of myself, different perspectives from my kids' lenses. And it gives me more information. It allows me to give and receive love every moment I'm with them, and even not with them. Read our kids' books, how we're always connected. Like, we got to believe that. I do. So, like, I will be sitting at home and have this memory or moment pop up about one of my kids, and I will just send them love. And, like, how beautiful is that, right? That we get to do that, that we're connected to these souls. Like, that's the beauty that I had to unfold, and like all the emotions and highs and lows of parenting and being a foster parent. I will say definitely added on like a level of surrender for me, and just this sense that, like, yes, I'm here. I know what's true in this moment, but I have to detach from what I think may or may not happen. And now, like, we ended up adopting our 2 boys, and when that shift happened, that was a huge energetic shift. Like, even leading up to it, like, knowing, okay, they're available for adoption, and leading up to it, it's like, it was this huge momentum. And then adoption day, I know it's a very big, like, celebration, and lots of people have parties, and we had a little celebration. We took pictures. There is this, it was a shift of energy that it was like, okay, they're leaving this system that they were in. The dynamics, the energy has changed, but the relationship, the interactions, everything that I built up with them, like, energetically, it's on the same foundation. It feels different. There's this sense of freedom being adopted. There's this honoring and this grief that also happens. So it was like, I don't know that I could have like fully gone through this process without the healing that I undertook. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I don't know what that would have looked like. I could probably sit here and imagine, but I imagine it would have been a lot harder, rockier, I want to say. And to this day, you know, coming back to myself, coming back to my truth, being able to regulate myself, and just kind of like take a different perspective, right? Our little humans, like, as a parent, to see our little humans and just know, like, that's a whole, they have their own agenda, their own mind, their own body, and it's just like amazing to be able to witness and step back instead of trying to control. And I will say a lot of my wounds, like, going into parenting, was like around expectations and having control. Like, not even necessarily about the kids or like things that like specifically they would do, but I had a sense of control in my life. I had this need to control things in my life that parenting was just like, nope, like, forget it, you know? And that was kind of a rude awakening. But when you get those senses, like, so any part of your life, right? You could make the biggest spiritual practice. Like, it could be your work, it could be your job, it could be taking care of maybe like a parent, like if you're a caretaker, if you're being called to move, okay? Like any piece of your life can become a spiritual practice if you want it to. Now, I choose to do this across the board, but like I think about big changes that need to happen and then like it's going to end, right? So like buying a house. Why not make the whole thing spiritual? Like it's doable. When you know that you're about to move, like that's when you start with the visualizations, right? Like we all make Pinterest boards. We all kind of look up what we want. You might even go on like Zillow and like look at houses, right? So that is getting in the energy of getting manifesting your house. If you want to talk about buying a house and making it spiritual, you're going to be looking at manifestation, visualization, energy work, scripting, maybe like any type of manifestation practice, but also like going through your things at your current house, right? There's all these ways that you can make it really spiritual. And a lot of times, instead of making it spiritual, people will make it like a to-do list, which is great. If you are a list person, go for it. But then it kind of is like the mundane. It's like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. Oh, like clearing out clutter. This has been a huge shift for me because like laundry, clearing out clutter, like spring cleaning, any of that stuff that seems mundane. It is like you just have to I say this and it seems so simple and I don't mean it to be like it's so easy, but just remind yourself of the energetics behind it. Like clearing out your stuff or doing your laundry. I think about I there's times where we live out of laundry baskets where I'm like, I did the laundry, but I didn't put it away. And I think about the energetics behind that. And I think like, how do I want to show up? How do I want to live my life? And do I want to be just reaching and hoping I grab for the thing that I really desire? Or do I want to be able to open up the drawer and look and see exactly what I'm grabbing? It's more efficient. It gives me confidence on what I know I'm going to get, right? There's the clarity. Like when you're just digging in laundry baskets, it's a little unclear of where things are, of what you're going to get. And when you put your clothes away, you probably put your clothes in drawers that you know where it is and you know where to go when you want a certain thing. Metaphorically, in your life, how lovely would that be to know when you go reach for something, when you say, I want to call this in, I want to manifest this, you have that clarity of what it is you're looking for, where you want to reach, where's your support, right? How are you going to call that in? It's dropping in a lot faster than trying to dig through all this clutter. The same thing with like decluttering your stuff. So everything has energy, of course, and going through old things or clearing out clutter, it's so good for like energy clearing and just like cutting cords with things because as everything has energy, so if you have a space where a lot of things have just sat for a long time, like you're just holding on to energy. And so I think of like, yes, it's an action, you got to clean it out, but I literally think of like moving energy out, and you can do this in a really peaceful way where it might bring more peace to you while you're doing it too, of like thanking things for serving you, thanking things for their purpose or memories. Like if you have a ton of like kids art and stuff and you want to like consolidate bring it down, like it's like, I don't know, some people have a hard time throwing away their kids artwork. Thank the artwork, right? Thank your kid for that memory that you have, for giving it to you. Like you're just passing on the energy. And if your kid gave it to you like from love or from like, hey, I had this great day with you outside and I drew it on this paper, like that is great energy to pass back to the earth. Like that is amazing. So there's so many ways to shift your perspective. It's the same thing like for something bigger, like parenting, or like if you're fighting an illness, okay, like the flu or any type of illness, or if like terminal illnesses, right? making things spiritual, I guess to me is like a no-brainer. Like it just do it, because it is like, it's not always easy. But when you have that foundation, it's like you get to come home even in the depths of life, even in the darkness, even in like there's that place for you to land. And like when I visualize that, I think about in moments of that feel really high stress, that feel really low vibrational. You have a soft place to land. So with parenting, it was a matter of how do I stay in the moment and really appreciate what I have? That's literally, it seems so simple, but it's not. I know it's not. I do it every day. I lose it every day almost. And it's a matter of having that curiosity and awareness of like, where am I slipping off to that's not allowing me to be in the moment? And is there an emotion that comes up that I need to process? Like being honest with, like, I feel like bringing spirituality into anything, it just creates this not expectation, but like safe space for honesty and truth. Like if I'm going to be present, like there's really no avoiding if I have a low vibrational emotion coming up, right? Like being present doesn't rid you of feelings. And so being present allowed me to really just be honest with Amy, and now the kids are older and I get to share that with them. And they get to see how I process my emotions, how I regulate my body. I have this guy here. If you're on YouTube, you get to see him. This guy is amazing. He's, I don't know if he has a name, but I call him my little Buddha. And he changes colors for you to inhale, hold your breath, and then exhale. And the kids see me use this. We use it together. And it's like taking deep breaths is one of the things that we just do. Like it's one of the best ways, like all of us calm our body. And so the kids know, like, mommy's taking a deep breath. Like, do you have a big feeling? Like they will ask me, because that's what I ask them. Like, do you have a big feeling that we want to take a deep breath and feel? Bringing things in the moment. And so like at work, if work is a big, I want to say stress, like you claim it, right? Like if it's a big stress, if it completely consumes you, if it feels like the densest, I don't know, a really dense area in your life, get curious about it. And how can you be more in the moment at work? I know before I quit my 9 to 5 job, I was like always trying to be out of work, whether that was mentally, physically, like if I was at work, I would try to mentally be out and like listen to a podcast, watch a show, text, right? Scroll social media, go to the bathroom, like do anything to be physically or mentally out of there. And what really brought me peace and was able to like allowed me to close that chapter was like one, if I just, so there's a difference of being ready to close the chapter and running away from it. Like in the past, I would have run away. Like I'm obviously don't want to be here, so I'm just going to leave, like, and quit my job. The last 9 to 5 job I had, I really came to peace. One, it happened around in 2020. It happened, and I just knew. I was like, I need to close this chapter, because I wanted to be everywhere but sitting at my computer working. And I would just make excuses and I would work on other things. Like I would do everything that I needed to do, but I would not remain present with my job. So I just knew. And what really allowed me to be at peace and like completing my 9 to 5 chapter was being more present, like being intentional of, okay, this is a task that I'm going to give all my energy to. And there was this sense of like, one, I do have this deep sense of responsibility. So it was really fulfilling this need to be responsible with my work. But it also just allowed me to fully immerse myself and recognize like, this is not what I want to be spending my energy doing. And taking that time to be really present allowed me to have that clarity. Because sometimes I will say, we'll distract ourselves in so many ways just out of habit and like conditioning. And it's like, do you really want to be distracting yourself, or do you want to be doing the thing that you're pretending to do? And sometimes you actually want to be doing that, but you put yourself like around so many distractions out of some sort of fear. Like, what if you're really good at it? Or actually, what if you're bored? Like it could go either way. So don't make up your mind. Like if you've been distracting yourself, or if there's an area where you think like you're done with because you have openly distracted yourself, get curious about that. And then just like, what would it look like to be fully present and to just immerse myself in the energetics behind each task. So a lot of times people will come to me and they're like, but the work I do isn't important. Somebody else could do it, blah, blah, blah. Like really just bashing themselves in a roundabout way. Because like, if you aren't valued at your work, I want you to get curious about that and think why. Like it could be that the people there don't value you, but are you valuing yourself? Do you value your time at your work? How are you showing up there? Because it's not going to feel like other people are valuing you if you don't see the value in yourself. So that's a whole mindset and energetics thing in itself. And that could be not just at work. That could be at home. I talk to a lot of people about like home life and not feeling valued and feeling like they do all the work at home. Like I've had this feeling myself too. And it comes to like recognizing yourself. Like if you do a lot and you don't like it, one, recognize that you do a lot. Two, ask for help. Get really clear on where you want support. If you live with other people, they are just as responsible. And that's where boundaries and communication come in. This is where like spirituality infused in every part of your life is just a game changer, because like I said, there's no way to really like avoid what's uncomfortable. There's no way to avoid what's low vibrational, because when you're spiritual, like like there's like, I think about what just popped up in my head was like the TikTok videos where people are sharing the icks of like their partners or siblings, or I've seen people do like icks about themselves. And it's like, kind of like pet peeve stuff, but just like ridiculous things. And I get like ick with myself when I don't just like take a step back and like laugh or like interrupt with, inner child work, or just like I get really grossed out with myself when I get stuck in low vibrational energies and I'm just like swimming in it. But then, like I remember like we have those moments for a reason, right? Like that's the spiritual practice, is loving yourself through the moments that might ick, that might seem like an ick. Loving yourself through, you know, thing like the highs and the lows. How do you want to respond? And that's like how you make anything spiritual, is slowing down enough, being present, asking yourself, how do you want this story to play out? How do you want to respond? If you've already done something that you don't like, said something that you don't like, think about it, parenting, at work, whatever. If there's something that you feel like, well, that contradicts this, get curious about that contradiction and know that there's a new story to tell, right? Any experience you have and the emotion that you have attached to it, you can get really curious. What patterns were there? What beliefs were underlying all that? What emotions were there? Get really curious and then just decide, is this my truth? How do I want to play out this story? How do I want to tell this story? That's a powerful one. So, okay, I'm going to pull a couple cards and wrap up. Let me see. Okay, yeah. We're going to pull from Shaman's Dream. I feel like I just kind of cut off there, but I think I was kind of going in circles maybe a little bit. And I just looked at my little notes list and I think I covered everything. We'll see what the cards bring up too. Okay. We have in the hand, which the universe is your partner, lost compass, and galactic mushroom. Okay. Yeah, so fitting for like what we've been talking about, because basically like all of this that I brought up might feel overwhelming. They're saying like you kind of threw a lot on them. I did. I threw a lot because sometimes I feel like I'm talking to people in different areas of life. So I was trying to cover that. But what they want you to know is this doesn't have to be overwhelming. I said this in the beginning, but this doesn't have to be overwhelming, because when you slow down, you realize how supported you are. It's like the hand is like you're literally being held in whatever capacity you want to be held at. It's a matter of deciding. You get to decide how supported you want to be. And it might feel a little bit uncomfortable to be supported in the beginning. You're like, I can do this on my own. You could, but you can also accept support. You can ask for support. And when you open yourself up to support, it's like opening a door. They're saying like, just open the door and let the wind come in. Like it's gonna come in, like you won't even have to worry about it once you kind of open the door and ask for help. It's like opportunities are gonna show up, and they're just saying like, you're so held and supported. There's a part of you that wants to make amends with yourself. Yeah, they're saying with yourself. There's things that you need to forgive yourself for. There's things in conversations that maybe you want to go back to your inner child and just send some love. And they're saying like, that's okay. You're again with the support, it's okay. You can forgive yourself, you can send yourself love, and you can come back to what your truth is right now. Anything that happened like up until this moment, know that that was there for you to learn and grow from. And so coming back to integrity, which is what this lost compass is really like, spend some time with yourself, do the reflection, and figure out, like, ask yourself the questions like, is this my truth? Is this how I want to move forward? What can I release that is no longer in alignment? There's going to be a lot of honest conversations that are going to just like bring you straight clarity of, oh, this is not something I want to commit to anymore, or this habit or response behavior needs to change. And so they're saying pay attention to what support is coming in, because like the support that's going to naturally pop up into your life is going to guide you on what's ready to be released. So if you have a friend, they're basically showing me like, you're going to have these conversations that you think are going to go one way, and like you might call somebody for a specific reason, and then they bring up something and it reminds you of like that belief or that pattern or something that is ready to be released. And that's how you'll know. They're going to say like, it's going to come up through conversations, and the support that's coming to you is going to be familiar. It's not really like unfamiliar energy to you. So pay attention to conversations. And yeah, the last card was the galactic mushroom, which is really about the connectedness of everything. So know that the actions, like the habits and the patterns that you're committing to, like they're already connected to maybe things that you want to shift, the things that you desire, like it's all connected. So it's not so far out of reach. It's kind of that reminder of like, this doesn't have to be so overwhelming. My head, like my crown is like going nuts right now. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming, because everything's so connected. And with your support and like releasing a lot of the things and stepping into trusting yourself, it's like making amends with yourself is really just going to provide you that clarity. And what's going to happen with that, it's going to illuminate your path. It's like, it's like quantum leaps. I kind of get that sense of like, things are just going to shift when you surrender and open up to like, oh, maybe this isn't serving me anymore, even though like it's not something. They're saying like some of the things that you guys are going to have to release, we're going to have to release, they're not going to be things that you might think off the top of your head. They might surprise you a little bit, and some of them your ego might even resist, they're saying. But if you surrender and ask for the support, call in the support. This doesn't have to be physical people. Call in support of God, source, your guides, your higher self. They're saying go support your inner child and you'll feel the support. So yeah, they're saying this doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's about like trusting that this urge, this thing that's kind of been nagging at you, it's going to be illuminated in a new way, but that's what's going to help you kind of have that clarity. Wow. Okay. That visual is really unique. I will say, like, visually things are definitely turned on right now. We're going to pull a few tarot cards. Okay. Oh, goodness. Ooh, of course. Okay. We have the Three of Swords, we have the Justice card, and we have the Hermit card. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm just thinking that the Hermit card is so fitting. Because we talked a lot. I mean, like, getting curious and being self-aware, like, it's really hard to do if you're never alone. And so Hermit is like to reflect. And they're saying that when you surrender and you open up to this awareness, there's going to be opinions provided to you. And the Three of Swords is also coming to mind, but the Hermit is like, you need to reflect on the opinions that are reflected back to you. Reflect on what's reflected back to you. They're saying that's right. But basically, like, if somebody is providing you an opinion and or like a reflection, then you need to kind of take that time to yourself, because you've been in a pattern or routine. This is for me too. Totally for me. You've been in a pattern or routine of hearing something and taking it by truth, like saying that's my truth, without taking time to really like break it down. They're saying there's going to be pieces in the information that's provided to you. This could be somebody close to you or something you listen to. They say this isn't necessarily related to like the support. Like, the support that you're calling in is divine. And of course still use discernment, but there's going to be other voices heard, especially when you start surrendering and you're releasing some things. There's going to be voices and opinions shared. And they're saying, like, you need to hear that, but to break this kind of pattern and like say goodbye to like just taking on everyone's opinion, good or bad, like the praise or the like critiques, right? Like, there's some critiques that are may be true or may not be true, but like, take time to reflect. Like, they're saying, like, please do this, otherwise you're gonna like, it's a shorter path. They're saying, like, they're showing me, like, if you go this route, it's almost like going around a big sphere. Instead, you could just like cut right through it if you take time to discern, like, okay, I heard this today, or I just heard this in this conversation. What parts of this is my truth, if any? And they're saying it's gonna feel like your truth when you're around them because of the energy. They're like showing me that the version of you that's in the presence of this energy, so whether that's on a podcast, whether it's with your friends, in a class, whatever, in that energy, it might feel like your truth. And they're saying go back and clear it. Like, clear your energy, just set an intention to like set your ego aside and you want to connect with your divine truth, and ask again like what your truth is, and you might get a different answer. Trust that. They're saying that's what the Hermit was really about. What else did I want to say? Justice. Yeah, the Justice card is really about it's right below the Lost Compass, and I think it's for you specifically, of just like showing up for yourself, being the leader, right? Being able to lead yourself, and like giving yourself justice in a sense that you can forgive yourself, you can change the way you think, behave, react, and you're doing it from a place of love. there's like this balance that you're going to find of like, oh yes, I can learn from these experiences and these experiences. And it's really just coming back to yourself. It's like that curiosity of like, what does it do? You think about the scale when you think of like the justice card and like very Libra energy. And there's almost this like surrender to the experiment, because justice, like you have justice on your side, in the sense where like things coming to balance, things evening out for you, there's this stability. They're showing me a ground where like you're going to kind of like test this way, like this perspective, and you're going to decide like, do I need to go more this way or this way? I guess the justice they're saying use it for the visual, because it's not like, life isn't meant to be all even. And like the more you can remember that like you're gonna sway back and forth. They're showing me a pendulum too, because the more you allow like that, like now they're showing me branches. Okay, I got lots of visuals. I had this visual the other day too, but the more like kind of flexible you can be, knowing that like you have this kind of like bend to come back. Like if you move the scales one way, like take that time for self-awareness, take the time to reflect and say, okay, what's pulling it down a little bit more? Like how can I even balance this out? Do I need to balance this out right now? They're saying trust yourself. Like you're going to know your limits. They're saying sometimes we live life a little bit sideways. I love that. But there's this balance that's going to come when you start doing the reflecting, when you start getting more curious with yourself instead of other people around you. There's this balance in your foundation that's going to happen. And even when you're kind of walking like on a curb, even when like you're kind of like, a little bit sideways, you know that eventually there's going to be this balance, and you know what the balance is bringing. Like what's bringing the balance. That's better. And yeah, they just wanted to remind me the Three of Swords is that like allow yourself to feel and process any like lower vibrational emotions. It's not something that you want to bypass. It's not something that you like we're trying to avoid, but simply what can we learn from what's being called to heal. There's a lot of healing in these cards. Okay, I think that's it. I think we're set. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love you to leave a review or comment below and share with a friend, a loved one. And if you want to take a screenshot and share on social media, don't forget to tag me. I'm at Hermit and Heal on Instagram. And I will talk to you all next time on the Intuition Playground.